Hello and welcome to my autumn knitting plans video for this year 2022. If you have been around here a while, you know that I did a video last autumn with plans on all the patterns that are quite fancied knitting over the autumn period, and I think I showed around 10 patterns, and of those patterns I have knit 7, or I've completed 6 and I'm working through the 7th one. So I thought I would do another video based on the same thing but for this autumn as well. If you have watched my videos before, you'll see that I am sitting in a different place today. It's quite cold here. I live on Orkney, which is an island off the north coast of Scotland, and it is not the toasty weather that they've been having down in the rest of the UK. It's quite cold here, so I have the fire on behind me to keep me warm, and I have a sweater on because it is just that chilly. So that's why I'm here instead of my usual place. I have patterns and yarns scattered around me of all the ones I would like to try and get at least started this year, and I would hopefully get them finished by next autumn for sure. A couple of them, if you saw my last video, are back on this one as well. The ones that I didn't get around to finishing or even starting actually, but I will get to those probably last. First up though, I'm going to start with one that I have actually already started, and if you watched the podcast episode last week you will have seen, but have got a little bit further and I hope to have it finished pretty soon. The pattern I'm talking about is the Arboreal sweater by Jennifer Steingass, and although this picture shows it in a blue and white, I believe, yep, a blue and white or a blue and grey, I am knitting it in autumnal colours, which I will show you. I am using a burnt, kind of a faded orange and a beige for the colourwork section. It is a colourwork sweater and it is a round yoked sweater knit top down, which is probably the easiest sweater, other than maybe knitting a sweater flat is potentially easier if you're not used to knitting in the round, but I don't know, a round yoke sweaters is so much easier, and the construction method is pretty straightforward. There's no seaming to do or any of that. I'm using these two yarns. They're both Drops Soft Tweed, which is a 50% wool, 25% alpaca, 25% viscose blend. And yep, really enjoying working with them, really enjoying how the yoke on this sweater is turning out. I've already separated for the sleeves and I am currently working my way down the body, although I think once I've finished this ball of yarn I may pause on the body and knit the sleeves first, but I will see how I feel. So hopefully this shouldn't take me too much longer, as I am now just knitting stockinette. Really simple, really straightforward. Next up we have a pattern that I would like to cast on very soon, because I would like it to be my main knitting project for when I head south to go to Perth Yarn Festival, and it is a shawl pattern. It is this shawl, which I am going to completely mispronounce, which is the Humnebi by Fibre Tales. And yeah, it is a very nice shawl, which is, if I get this to zoom in a bit better, it is a stockinette, no it isn't, it is a garter stitch shawl, triangular shape, with a pattern at the bottom which looks like little bees, a little pattern at the bottom. The yarn that I intend to use is one that I bought last time I was at Perth Yarn Festival, which was back in 2019 when I was there as a vendor, because I am a yarn dyer, but of course whilst I was there I still had to buy yarn from other dyers as well, because you know, you can't resist. I bought 2 skeins of this yarn, which is a 80% superwash extra fine merino, 10% cashmere, 10% nylon blend, and it is by the Wool Barn, and it is a beautiful slightly golden, ever so slightly golden nutty brown, and it is beautifully soft. They had a sample shawl on the stall there, and it wasn't far from my stall, and I kept looking across at it, and I was just drawn to it. So I bought 2 skeins to be able to knit a shawl with, and that is the one that I have chosen. Next we have a pattern that I have knit before a couple of years ago, but I would like to make another one. It is the Ikboard cardigan by Andy Satterland, and as you can see I have notes all over it because this is the copy that I used last time. Last time I made a kind of a burnt orange version of this, and yes, I do knit a lot of Halloween and autumn colours because I like this time of year. This one is knit flat and it is knit bottom up. I knit it bottom up last time, but I actually knit this in the round and steeped it. It took some figuring out, but I did manage it. But the yarn this time, instead of an orange, is a green, and it is King Cole Forest recycled Aran yarn. It is a 35% wool, 20% acrylic, 20% polyamide, 25% viscose blend. Not my usual blend, but I did rather like the texture of this one. It is a nice heathery green, which is not going to show up very well. It's slightly more vivid than it is showing on camera, but it does have these lovely tweedy flecks in, multicoloured tweedy flecks in it. Kind of little bits of red and green and blue, there we go, in the yarn, which I really like. This is marked as an Aran weight yarn, but it kind of looks like a DK weight. I did swatch for it and it will knit up as an Aran weight quite pleasingly. I wasn't convinced it would, but it actually does. So yes, I intend to knit another one of those in this, and I will probably steek it again. Maybe not, but I probably will, to be perfectly honest. So yeah, that is next, although I would guess that's probably lower down the queue than, say, the shawl for Perth. Next we have a couple of patterns that I don't actually have yarn for yet, but that I'm hoping to keep an eye out for whilst I'm at Perth Yarn Festival. I might not be able to get some there, which is not a problem because I can dye up the colourway, sort of the colour that I'm looking for. But if I can get some there, that would be great, especially if I can get in a base that I don't actually dye on myself, which is kind of always what I'm looking for when I go to a yarn festival. I mean, I get tempted with other bases that I do sell anyway, but usually I like looking for yarns that are more unusual to me and ones that I don't have experience of, and that's what I'll really be looking for at Perth Yarn Festival, as well as, you know, the shinies that kind of draw me in. But one of the patterns that I am looking out for yarn for is for this pattern, which is, again, if you know my podcast, you'll know that I'm a big fan of Ellie of Skein-Da's patterns, and this is the listening shawl, and it is a Faroese style shawl which has a garter section at the top and a lace panel at the bottom. But it's not a straight up triangle shape, it has kind of like a squared off bottom on the triangle. It's kind of goes like that and then along and then like that. It has this kind of wing shape, which is quite unusual. I will be looking for some yarn in a kind of a rusty brown, like a dark rusty brown, more like like a dark terracotta, kind of. A dark brown with hints, undertones of kind of reddy orange. That's kind of what I'm looking for. In something a little interesting but not prickly, basically. So that is one of them that I'm looking for yarn for. The other one I'm going to have to show with my phone because I don't have the pattern yet. And it's got very similar colours that I'm looking for. But it is the... let me just check what it is. It's Hard Cider by Thea Coleman. It is a sweater, as you can see, with a turtleneck, and this, is it lace or cabling at the bottom? I think it's a lace pattern at the bottom, as well. Yeah, there we go, you can see the lace patterning at the bottom. And I will be looking out for yarn in a similar colour to the original pattern, which is this kind of warm mid brown with golden undertones. I've been really struggling to find some yarn in just the perfect shade like this for quite some time for a couple of garments that I would like to knit. I'm at the point where I'm kind of just gonna dye some up for myself, but yeah, that kind of almost like a dark honey colour is kind of what I'm looking for. But those are the two patterns that I'm looking out really for yarn for. There may be more. I haven't actually looked on my Ravelry queue properly yet. There may be more that I would like to knit maybe next year, so we shall have to see. Another design that I don't currently have in my library but I intend to purchase, but I do have the yarn for, is the carved pullover by Emily Haver, which I will show in a second. But I have the yarn because I'm going to use the same yarn as my Arboreal sweater. But the sweater itself is a lace, I suppose technically a lacework design. Is it lacework? I'm not actually sure, I shall have to check. But it has a jack-o'-lantern design on the front of the sweater. So yes, I intend to look like a giant pumpkin. Not quite though, because it won't be completely like neon orange. It will be this faint burnt orange. And I do intend to wear it all year round, not just at Halloween. Halloween queen that I am maybe, but all year round. And finally we have the 3 sock patterns that I did not get round to knitting last year, but I'm hoping to take at least one of them with me when I go down to Perth. I like something to keep my brain busy whilst I'm travelling, so to get to Perth it's all planes, trains and automobiles. I have to catch an overnight ferry for 7-8 hours overnight and then catch a train down to Perth. Yeah, so I need something to keep me entertained. First up is, let's see, which one shall I show first? This one, I think. First up is the Cosy Autumn socks that I have had to fold the pattern in half because the light's shining through and making the writing look very strange. The design is by, the name is not on this pattern. Let me check. Okay, this is a free design by This Handmade Life, which doesn't surprise me. I like quite a few of her designs. But the yarn that I'm planning to use for this, and there was some debate in the comments as to which one to use for these socks last year, but it was decided upon the Rico Superbar Vintage in the colourway number 3, which is this kind of autumnal variegated yarn in this nice fluffy woolly blend. And I did knit a pair of socks for my husband in another colourway of this yarn for Christmas last year, and they come out really nice, so I'm looking forward to having a pair of my own. Next we have another pair of socks by This Handmade Life, and this one is a Little Hocus Pocus socks. And these ones are a cable design, whereas the last ones were a lace one. I'm not the biggest fan of knitting cable by a long shot. I just don't like it, but I love the finished result of cabling, so I kind of persevere. The yarns that I intend to use is similar in some ways to her colours on the original design, which is a orange, kind of an orangey colour and a green colour. I'm going to use these 2 yarns, which I think look really nice together. Quite bright and contrasty, but without being, I don't know, like neon orange and neon brown, neon green even. This one for the main body being Drops Fable in colourway even 110, which I believe is called Rust. And for the contrast toes, heels and cuffs, because I don't think I will have enough of this for the cuffs as well, will be the Regia Eco Line Uni, one colour, 4-ply in the colourway 3004. which is a dark, kind of a dark Christmas green, dark forest green with the burnt orange, which I think will look rather nice. And the final sock pattern I'm kind of choosing between is this one, which, if I come in a little closer with that, yep, is another lace design sock with these leaves running up the ankle and the foot. The design is Autumn Fires by, and this is French, so you know, excuse my pronunciation here, but Les Maisons de Sabbat. That's probably completely wrong, but it should be fairly close, and it is a free pattern on Ravelry. And for the yarn, I intend to use a vintage yarn that I picked up from the charity shop many years ago, and it is a Sunbeam yarn, Sunbeam St. Ives, and it is this kind of tweedy brown with little bits of blue and beige in it, sock yarn. And I can tell you the colourway, but I don't think it'll be available anymore, but it is 3,095, and it is just a 80% wool, 20% nylon blend yarn. So those are my kind of plans. I might throw in the odd one here and there. It's unlikely because there are certain ones I really want to get finished. I want to get the Arboreal sweater finished. I really want to get the carved pullover sweater on the needles so that I can have a pumpkin sweater to wear through November. No, October. I will wear it in November as well, but for October. The socks, again, hopefully one pair to take with me to Perth. The shawl to take with me to Perth, because then I can take 2 projects, and there'll be garter stitch section for the shawl, so that's mindless stuff. Bit more complicated for when I need my mind taking off things with the sock or with the shawl border, and that should be plenty for the week that I'm away, because I have a lot of things I have to do during that week. Other than just the yarn festival itself, I have retail therapy to do in Perth itself, and after the festival I will be going back up the country and stopping off at my mum's on mainland Scotland for a visit there too. So I have a lot going on, but I do want options, and I don't want to take a lot of bulk, like a sweater. I don't really want to take my Arboreal sweater as a project. It's okay to take it as my one sweater I take with me perhaps, but not as a knitting project so close to being finished anyway, because it will just take up my entire suitcase. So yes, those are my plans. What do you think? What are you planning on knitting like over the next couple of months? Let's pretend the Christmas knitting hasn't started yet, or the winter knitting hasn't started yet, because mine hasn't. I have lots of plans for that too, but I really need these done first. So is there something you're really itching to cast on this autumn that I haven't spoke about and I might have missed, because I am always excited about new autumn and Halloween designs, especially when it comes to garments. So let me know down in the comments, and I shall see you on the next video. Bye.